Hey everybody, I'm going to try and make a video about making videos, both because I got asked recently by somebody to go into a bit of detail about what I do, and because I've seen a couple of videos that made me go, good content, but needs some finishing up touches. I'm going to try and use the analogy of baking a cake. So yeah, the cake is a lie. References? No, but seriously, let me preface this by saying I'm not some kind of master chef or a wizard when it comes to video productions either. But as far as cooking goes, I can make very tasty fried eggs. Along the same line, I'm going to give you a peek at the kitchen of video editing in an attempt to give some tips to spice up your content. So the first thing, the recipe. I've sectioned it off in a couple of things, like recipe, kitchen utensils, cooking, and adding sprinkles to keep up with the cooking analogy. And insofar as a recipe goes, well, you can simply use Notepad, PowerPoint, Word, WordPad, sticky yellow notes, pen and paper, anything. And I'm not saying it's required to create a script or storyboard. It's sometimes even funny to watch a purely unscripted first response ranty video, but sometimes it's probably wise to have a bit of an outline, not just in your head but on paper, so you can peek. Same with the recipe. If you run into the kitchen with the goal of creating a layered cake, and you just open the fridge and grab the first couple of things, but you might end up still with some very tasty eggs, but yeah, it's sometimes not the goal you had in mind when you started. So yeah, don't take a master class in script writing or storyboarding. You'll pick up more do's and don'ts by just watching people, and it's not the holy grail either. If you have some kind of script or storyboard, feel free to drift away from it a bit here and there in a don't read what you wrote out loud, because that will be boring kind of way. Common sense things, pretty much, but I wanted to highlight it anyway. So, jumping straight into the kitchen utensils, which will be the main section, and a bit of a mess because I'm going to jump between a lot of tools and concepts using a different tool than I'm currently using to record the webcam. So I'm going to outline it first and go into it some more in detail. It will briefly be about a bit of file types and nifty tools, a bit about the actual recording, some things for more quick and dirty work, a bit about sound, a bit about actual video, and I'll probably split it up into a more polished project editor thing as well, in a sort of actual cooking kind of way. Although I will aim to keep this at the no budget, low budget type stuff. I'm going to gloss over some more polished professional video editors. I do happen to have a licensed version of Sony Vegas, so I'll show off a couple of things from that. I also will go into Lightworks a bit, but I haven't figured out that in depth myself, so I'm just going to mention it. Before skipping over to the last section, which basically is about adding sprinkles, additional music, sound, images, fun stuff. So that's the outline, and let's jump into some kitchen utensils, so to say. So I'm going to really briefly gloss over file types. If you have specific questions, feel free to ask. But to give a simplification, if you're making a spreadsheet, you can't really easily save it as a PowerPoint, and vice versa. There will probably be specific scenarios in which this will be useful, but I'm just going to mention it real quickly, I guess. The website in the background, www.online-convert.com, is amazing if you just quickly want to re-render a Flash video file to a MP4 file or AV or whatever. You have a bazillion different options with all sorts of fun stuff, and not just for video convert, but they have a lot of different converters. So it's a good site to mention, and I'm really quickly going. So I was trying out ffsplit as a free alternative to xsplit, of which my license expired, but unfortunately this piece of software isn't doing yeah, so that broke, and unfortunately that means I'm going to go back to screenshots instead of actually recording what I wanted to record. Oh well. See, even the best laid out plans can go to hell real quick. Nonetheless, there are certainly a lot of different ways to record the actual content. For the most sort of response videos, I think it's just as easy to record using a webcam software, which should be distributed with the webcam you got. For games, there's a really good program called Fraps, which has a few ups and downs. The up is that it records raw, so it doesn't take up a lot of CPU, so you can focus your computer on the actual game, so it doesn't steal a lot of frames from that. The downside is that you end up with gigabit files quite quickly, and for that you do not want to upload them to the convert site I mentioned earlier. You probably want to either just leave them as is and render it using a different, render the full file using a different software, or alternatively you can re-render them quickly using virtualdub, and I'll show a couple of screenshots of that. with some more detailed explanation, and then render it. Does that make sense? I guess. I hope. Let me just grab a couple of screenshots from virtualdub. What I was basically trying to say is if you're recording some kind of series on a game or just an episode, you might end up with I don't know, 30 minutes video, for example, and you'll notice that fraps splits it up every 4 gig by default setting, which you probably want to keep. So what you'll end up doing is re-rendering all the individual files in a fast recompress to MP4, and if you're smart, you name them in a sequence so you can import them all in a second pass through to end up with a finalized take that you can upload as a single file. Yay. Let me know if you have a question about that, because my explanation of this is not helpful without much actual background things going on that I can click on and show you. But I'm going to blame the expired license and buggy ffsplit for that. Sorry. But bottom line, an alternative to fraps is, for example, camstudio, even though fraps is pretty cheap and pretty amazing, so just get it. Fraps should be able to capture other programs aside the full screen game type windows, but I'm not always having a lot of success with that, so I don't know, it's probably my incompetence, even though I should know this kind of stuff. Well, whatever, who knows. In terms of sound editing, I already mentioned Audacity, which is your one and true and only amazing default software for that. I'm going to put a screenshot in the background over this instead of actually playing around with it. Thanks license and ffsplit, but whatever. I won't drag it out. But it has all the basics, pop reduction, blah blah blah. But the main thing I use it for lately is just snipping out bits that are unhelpful, trimming out long silences like this. I'll leave it in, of course. Although you'll notice that if you record whatever you're saying in the webcam software, that won't work because, well, it's just not really possible to extract the wave and then edit it and put it back in without having some kind of desync going on. What you could end up doing is parse the video file from the webcam through virtualdub and snip out the parts that you want to keep, put all those into a new folder, and if you add the sequenced naming, you can import it all back into a new file quite easily. Unfortunately, I can't really show what I mean, but if you want me to go through some of that in a Hangout on air, or so, well, not on air, but in a Hangout, in which I'll be using screen share, I'm fine with that. Feel free to ask. So, on the topic of the slightly more polished editors, personally I have a license for Sony Vegas, the consumer version. If you look up, for example, Sony Vegas or one of their competitors, you'll often see like $500, $600 versions of their software. Yeah, those are not for the consumer market. Almost all of them, as far as I know, also have a $50 version, 70, 60, somewhat like that. Look around a bit. Other is that I've recently run into Lightworks as a currently free example of a more polished video editor. Unfortunately, I haven't played around with it at all, so I can't say if it's good or bad or even practical. I actually was mostly used to Sony Vegas by now, so it's a completely different UI and a completely different way of working with your project. So I haven't even begun to learn how to actually produce something in it, but I'm going to mention it anyway because hey, it's free. And it became free. It already was used in high production actual movie studio settings, so it ought to be good. I just haven't figured it out yet. As you can see in the screenshot, for example, Sony Vegas has not just a nice timeline so that you can see all the effects and transitions and stuff like that. Yeah, there are a ton of options. It's a lot more intuitive as combining separate things with virtualdub, but if you're in a pinch, virtualdub is quite clever if you get the hang of what you can do with it. Again, feel free to ask. I'll try not to waste like 30 minutes just covering the basics. So onward to the sprinkles on top, pretty much. Okay, sprinkles on top time. Party. And yeah, kitchen analogy. Can somebody please turn off that kitchen fan? Thank you very much. But with all fun aside, this is the part that will last you quite a long time. Music, sound effects, if needed, background images, intros, outros. Yeah, that will take take a couple of moments to get together. Sometimes you're in luck. I made a video a couple of weeks ago, and I was quite surprised at how little effort it took to find all sorts of related funny clips, although I kind of broke the policy of being liberal with fair use. Yeah, well. Nonetheless, this isn't going to include a lot of background stuff. I used a couple of sound effects here or there, but there's mainly to elaborate. This isn't really the type of video to use all sorts of background images either. And I'm not going to bother doing an outro, so yay. But seriously, it's still a really important aspect of some videos anyway. So I want to give a couple of places for resources, and in no particular order, for music. A really awesome site is Incompetech, link below as always, but also a bit of a couple of screenshots in the background. Royalty-free music, period. If you look around long enough on their site, you'll find a couple of reminiscent tunes from your favorite YouTubers, because it's been around for ages and it's quite popular. Nonetheless, it still has an extensive library, a nicely ordered one at that too. So take a look at that. In terms of sound effects, I haven't really needed that a lot, so I only found one great site in terms of content for that recently, because I haven't looked better as that. Let me quickly peek at the name, because I don't want to ruin it. Right. So why is it not here? Did I close it? No, it's wow. It's www.soundjay.com. It's not as organized as the Incompetech site by comparison, but it's still extensive, and yeah, it may be a bit more fiddly in finding whatever you're looking for, although it does have a search option somewhere. But if you just glance at all the categories and glance through all the pages within the categories and stuff like that, it can be a bit frustrating. Still, it's royalty free and good. Aside Incompetech, I also just found Bench Sound, which is mentioned aside a couple of others from the Incompetech website. It's another place that has seemingly pretty cool music, so take a look at that as well. Another tip, if you're looking for more lengthy background things that you can just play for like 10-20 minutes, a really popular band is approaching Nirvana. They publish all their stuff in a feel free to reuse license type, though not for everything. I'm not too sure. Take a good look at what you include. Lastly, in regards to images, If you go to Google, then go to images, and then fill in something, you'll get the option below it. And let me quickly take a look at the site. Yeah, you'll get an option below it, search tools, and aside the funny things like size and color and whatnot, there's something mentioned not filtered by license. If you click on that, you can hit labeled for reuse with modification, and everything you find will be cool to reuse in your own content. You may want to take a look at the site that it's hosted on, just to make sure if they don't request a reference in the credits or in the description, but other than that, it should be fine. And last but not least, in terms of graphic options, you probably want to check out GIMP, which isn't a sex reference, but it stands for the GNU Image Manipulation Program. It's reminiscent, if not pretty similar to Photoshop, but free. So there's that. One really cool aspect about GIMP is that it has a logo toolbox thingamajig, so you can really easily create images with the fancy looking text logo things. The one I used at the start was through Sony Vegas, but you can at least make static versions like that really easily. It beats Arial 10, blown up all over the screen, that's for sure. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. We've been from the start, storyboarding, gone through the tools that are applicable and in which ways you can use them. The actual rendering will take a while, but nonetheless, before you do that, feel free to find some sprinkles to put on top. Take another pass through before you actually render, just to make sure you didn't lose the beat somewhere, in whatever way, shape, or form that may be. But also keep in mind, you're not making a Hollywood production. It's okay to balance the amount of tweaking and fine touching with the with leaving in a couple of flaws, like how, for example, this last comment isn't really well written because I'm doing it off the top of my head. Okay, so with all that said and done, I hope to have given you some insights. Again, all the links to the applications mentioned, the sites mentioned, will be in the description below. And this is mostly intended as a general first look outline type deal. If you have any specific questions, feel free to ask. Other than that, leave a like, leave a comment. See you next time. Bye bye. See, I listened to what I said. Do a last pass, because I've almost forgot one majorly fun site. keepfit.com. which is a backdoor way to grab the things you want to comment on from YouTube. There it goes. Thanks for watching. See you next time.